Hey everybody, and welcome back to the second instalment of the Dungeon Delve Devlog series. Since the last video, I've been developing these 3 goblin enemies, the Grunt, Berserker and Shaman. All of these enemies come with their own AI, animations and sound effects. Starting with the simplest of enemies, we have the Grunt. This is the slowest and weakest of the 3 implemented. This goblin is supposed to be the least unique with no special abilities, however it does come with 2 mesh options to add some slight variation. All this goblin will do is move to the player and punch them until either the player or the goblin is dead. Next up is the Berserker. This goblin is far tougher than the Grunt with more health and damage output, but with the drawback of being slower. Like the Grunt, this enemy comes with 2 mesh options with a 50-50 chance of either mesh being used. What makes this unit special is its unique whirlwind ability. When this ability is active, the goblin will spin their axe whilst moving towards the player. This special ability has a cooldown of 10 seconds and lasts for 5 seconds. Lastly is the Shaman. This goblin is not a fighting enemy, so does not have much health or attack damage. What this goblin does have is the ability to revive dead enemies to half health as its special ability. The Shaman doesn't have a cooldown for reviving, but the action does take 3 seconds to complete, which will make them vulnerable to the player's attacks. All 3 of these goblins derive from the same class as to share the same important functions, such as navigation, animation and audio. The enemies use Unity's built-in navigation and pathing systems controlled through this move to function, which allows control over destination, movement speed and turn speed. This function is most frequently used for moving the enemy to and from the player. This diagram demonstrates how that's controlled. If the player is in the white zone, the enemy goes towards the player, whereas if the player is in the red zone, the enemy attacks, and when in the grey zone, the enemy moves back. The size of this attack zone is determined by 2 parameters, minimum distance and acceptable overlap, and they're used like so. Onto your animator control, this is the function to control the movement animation. What it does is convert the velocity from the nav agent to an X and Y speed flow, which is then applied to the animator. By using the velocity, the transition between animation states is more dynamic. Attacks are controlled through this incrementing counter and then applied back to the animator by triggering the attack while entering and setting the attack flow. Last thing to show is the sound functions. To prevent any audio repetition, the audio function uses some randomness to select the audio clip, which is then passed to an audio manager. These functions are events so they can be used with the animations. That's all for this devlog. I hope you enjoyed watching. For the next video I'll be adding items and stats, so come back if you want to see how that goes. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.